So welcome again, in case I wasn't heard, but then we do like to begin our meetings with a welcome and a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Lummi and Nooksack peoples. Their presence is imbued in these mountains, valleys, waterways, and shorelines. May we nurture our relationship with our Coast Salish neighbors and the shared responsibilities to their homelands where we all reside today. So we're pleased to welcome Elder Darrell Hillaire today for our main presentation. But before he speaks, I would like to introduce Andrea Shupak, who is the cantorial soloist for Congregation Beth Israel. And she will be offering a reflection as well as a teaching on Shmitah. Andrea served in the community as their music leader for 8 years. She is also the education director for their Sunday school program. Andrea is currently studying for ordination as a rabbi and cantor at the Academy for Jewish Religion, a seminary in New York. And she is trained as a Jewish storyteller. She believes in the power of music and story to deepen our connections to each other, helping us have compassion for and see the humanity in all. So welcome, Andrea, and looking forward to our time with you.
Hi, thank you so much. And thank you for having me come and talk about something that I'm really excited and passionate about. When I first learned about Shmitah, I couldn't be even more excited to be Jewish because I just thought that it was such a beautiful, beautiful piece of our tradition that I want to share with you tonight. So one of the foundational concepts of Judaism is the Sabbath or Shabbat. It's a day at the seventh day of each week to find balance, to rest, and really stop being a human being and be a human, to start being a human being instead of a human doing for one day out of each week. So on that day of Shabbat, we're commanded to rest, and we're also commanded to give animals and other workers, everyone, rest on that day. So the Shmitah, and I'm going to share screen. Let's see if this works. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. So along with this weekly day of rest, the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, also has a yearly rest. The 7th year is called the Shmitah, which means release. And I don't know if you see the whole screen. I want to make sure that I'm not cutting off the image here, but we'll find out when we go to the next page. Okay. So in the first place in the Torah where we get this instruction about the Shemitah year is in Exodus. And it says, 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its yield, but in the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow. Let the needy among your people eat of it, and what they leave, let the wild beasts eat of it. You shall do the same with your vineyards and olive groves. So just as the 7th day is a Sabbath, every 7th year is a Shabbat for the earth, for humans, and for animals. A Shabbat of all Shabbats, the ultimate rest. And this September, when we celebrated our new year of Rosh Hashanah, we entered into a Shemitah year. So it's a pretty exciting time. Many of us are taking the ancient laws from Torah of Shmitah as an inspiration for making positive changes in the way we interact with the environment and work for justice today. And I'll share some ideas at the end of what some people are doing after I tell you a little more about what Shmitah incorporates and what it's all about. So Shmitah is not just about the land. It also calls for a release of debts, a release of slaves, and the release of the land to rest. So I like to think of this as a complete rebalancing of society and the earth. All land is left fallow. There's no cultivation or pruning, and every person and animal may glean from whatever the land produces naturally. So one is not allowed to sell or make profit from the food, but everyone is allowed to take what is there just to, for their sustenance, to survive, for their food. So it says, and this is from Leviticus. Oh, I think I got ahead on my slides. Sorry, hang on one sec. So there is a strong element of faith in these laws as well. As you can imagine, if you are not allowed to work your land and produce food, that could be pretty scary. And the Torah anticipates this, as well as some other issues that people might have when trying to follow these laws. So it says in Leviticus, if you say, what shall we eat in the 7th year? So how are we going to do this? How are we going to survive with a Shmitah year? Since we cannot sow or gather in our produce, then I will command my blessing on you in the 6th year, and it will bring forth produce enough for 3 years. And another piece where the Torah anticipates some of the issues that may arise through this practice is about returning debts or forgiving debts. So it says, beware that you may harbor the thought, the 7th year is approaching, so that you are mean to your needy brother and give him nothing. So basically someone wants a loan and you're worried that they're never going to pay the loan back because their loan is about to be forgiven in the 7th year. The Torah warns us, he will cry out to the Lord against you and it will be your guilt. Give to him readily and have no regrets when you do so, for in return, the Lord will bless you in all your efforts and all your undertakings. So the message is, have faith, still do the right thing, and you will be provided for. So another really interesting thing is this predominance of 7s in the Torah. There's a lot of significance given to this number. We have 7 holidays that the Torah commands us to observe. We count every day of the 7 weeks leading up to Shavuot when we celebrate the receiving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, the Revelation. And Shmitah is the 7th year. It's also mentioned 7 times in the Torah. And there are 7 aspects or rules of Shmitah described in the Torah. So this will give you a really good overview of kind of what all Shmitah encompasses between these 7 pieces. So 1 is the land should rest. 2 is preferential treatment for foraging is given to the needy. 3, the land is rewilded, once again allowing access to wild animals. 4, debts are forgiven, helping close the gap between the wealthy and the destitute. 5, slaves are freed. 6, upon release, freed slaves should be compensated for their slave labor. And 7, all the people should gather for a public reading of the Torah at this time. And in addition to the Shmitah year, every 7th year, there is also a Jubilee year or a Yovel on the 7th Shmitah, so in the 50th year, which includes all the things you would follow for the Shmitah year, plus, and this one kind of, I don't know, when I first learned about this, it really wowed me, a complete redistribution of land. So whoever originally was on that land, it is whoever might own the land at that time, they give that up. The land goes back to its original inhabitants, and it's a complete redistribution. So the Torah lays out this radical blueprint for an ideal society and world. The Torah recognizes that our agriculture and environmental needs are connected to and equally as important as social justice needs. Since debts are released and in the Jubilee year land is returned, it helps teach us that no one can really own land, people, animals, or even things. All that we have, all sources of life, come from the divine. Lest we forget and think that the world was given to us to do with it as we please, the Torah tells us that if we neglect these laws, God will choose the land over the humans. And it says, if you reject my laws and spurn my rules, so that you do not observe all my commandments and you break my covenant, I will in turn do this to you. And then just to sort of summarize here, it basically is saying that, here, I'm going to skip to the bottom. The land will make up for its lack of observance. So if you neglect the land and don't allow it to rest, ultimately the land is going to force a Shmitah upon you, and it is not going to produce, and you are going to be left without its sustenance. And while that might seem harsh or a horrible punishment, I see it, and many Jewish environmentalists see this text not as a punishment, but as a consequence. So if we don't observe the Shmitah, the Torah teaches, if we don't let the land rest, if we forget our place in the world and take more than our share, hoarding possessions, destroying the earth, then the land's capacity will diminish as the land becomes infertile. It's a simple cause and effect as opposed to a threat from God. Ignoring the land's needs and disrespecting it by denying it rest and care leads, as we are already witnessing, to destruction of the land. So this concept of a sabbatical year for all life, if we could learn to truly practice it in the ways it was intended, I would say it would create the justice the Torah is teaching us to practice every day, a justice for fellow human beings, for all land and all life. And this year of release invites each of us to re-examine our relationships with the earth and with the divine and with one another. We rest alongside the land. We share in the abundance of our landscapes as equals with one another and with the wild creatures. Money is de-emphasized and debts are released. Shabbat, Shmitah, and Yovel, the Jubilee, are about a return to an idyllic Eden where human and the more than human world are equals, living in harmony with the land, providing for all of life's needs. So these laws were given in the context of returning to Israel. So they only apply in the land of Israel. So many people do not observe these laws. But many Jews today in and outside of Israel are reclaiming it and taking the spirit of the laws to advocate for work, for justice, equality, and repair of the earth. And one really good example of that, which is the slide I have here from Hazon, is this organization Hazon. They are a Jewish environmental social justice nonprofit. They've been active for a long time, and this is not the first Shmitah that they have educated about and advocated for, beforehand, leading into and during the year. But they've sort of revamped it this year and partnered with dozens of organizations. And I'm going to put the link in the chat, and I can stop the share now. So that if you're interested in learning more, they have so many resources on their website. They even have an entire, I'd call it a book. I think it's more than just a pamphlet. I think it's a full-on book about Shmitah. And their goal is to raise awareness of the concept of Shmitah in Jewish tradition, both as a way to learn about how extraordinary and rich Jewish tradition is, to animate the conversation, change the world based on the values and teachings of Shmitah. And they also say on their website they want to explore the ways that traditional teachings about Shmitah shed light on a significant range of contemporary issues, including rest and work, relationship to the land, relationship to community, relationship to debt and debt relief, definitions of community inequality, and the issue of consumption itself. So they have a huge task ahead of them, but they're doing amazing work. And just to share a few little snippets of what some people are doing inspired by the Shmitah year. There's a farmer who I've met, used to live in the Bay Area from Berkeley, and he lets his land rest every Shmitah, among many other things that he works on. And he said about Shmitah, and I quote, "Shmitah is the most economically, environmentally, and socially radical idea in the Torah, hands down." And this year, there's a concerted effort in many circles to extend the principles of Shmitah beyond the letter of the law. Metaphorically, Jews are finding new ways to embrace the idea of lying fallow. Some are refraining from buying new clothes this year. Some are vowing to spend more time in and appreciating nature. and so on and so on. In fact, one of my teachers at AJR recently collected on, I think, Facebook or some other social media, like people were sharing all of the different things that they are choosing to do. And some of them are very much related to Shmitah, and many are, taking and running with the ideas of Shmitah to find their own place in it, which I think is really wonderful. And in our community at Beth Israel, we have congregants writing for a weekly, we're calling it the Shmita Corner, where they're sharing in our email newsletter different ideas, steps they've taken, or things that they've found that were inspiring to help us all find and take new steps to try new things to help be more in tune with the world and in our practices. So Shmitah is a comment on what society should look like. I really think it's an ideal that can be reached, but it's definitely challenging, and Jews have had challenging times following these laws since the time that the Torah was given. And there's a lot of debate on how to actually practice these laws in Israel, and lots of workarounds that have been established so that they sell their land to non-Jews so they can continue to cultivate it. So it's not a perfect system, but if we embrace it and modernize it for today, I think it can have a huge, huge impact. And then the last piece I want to leave you with, I forgot to time myself, so I hope I didn't go over 10 minutes. But there, an Israeli who also works for Hazon and runs a clean energy company in Israel, Julian Sinclair, he said that people are talking about how to make their organizations more sustainable. Part of the value, he wrote, of Shmitah is sharing. In the Torah, you open up your fields in the Shmitah year and everyone can come. Most of us don't have fields literally, but what is your field? What is your expertise, your source of livelihood that you could share more widely? So I leave you with that thought to ponder how, Jewish or not, I think the ideas of Shmitah can be inspiring for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andre. That was wonderful. Oh, thank you. And so now we'll have Deb move us forward into our time with Elder Hillaire.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. What I'd like to do is just do a brief intro of Elder Hillaire, and then we'll let him talk to us about the Salmon People Project that his organization, Children of the Setting Sun, is working on. So Darrell has served as a coach, mentor, teacher, speaker, and leader for the Lummi Nation for more than 30 years. Currently, Darrell is executive director of the Children of the Setting Sun Productions, leading the projects based upon relationships with many elders and community leaders, both regionally and nationally. Darrell has been widely recognized for his impact as peacemaker, bridge builder, and cultural bearer, both as a representative of Lummi Nation and as a regional and national leader. Over the years, Darrell continues to provide strategic guidance to tribal and other community leaders on key issues of the day, such as salmon recovery, economic development, sovereignty, and tribal governance. So welcome, Elder Hillaire. And you'll just need to let me know when you want me to run the trailer.
Well, cool. Now, Siam, it's good to see you all. I had to move so I could get closer to the screen. I realized, hey, Shirley's here, and James is here, and Ray is here. You're all here, so it's cool. Feels like we're in one big living room here, and just really happy to be here and share some time with you. And the best we can, share our energy for the work that we're doing, both individually and and collectively, we do know that we need to work together. And I hope what we share tonight is going to help towards that end of being together, being of one mind and one heart for the work that our generation is responsible for. And I really hope that we can have that meeting to do that, you know, in mind and spirit. So today or tonight, I'd like to introduce to you what we call the Salmon People Project. And it's a project that was born out of my witnessing the energy of the Lummi community when the salmon come home, and the feelings that are shared amongst a fishing community is quite extraordinary in that, you know, they always say that buzz, you know, you go to a concert and there's this buzz, or there's listening to Obama speak, there's this buzz, but it's kind of like in that vein when the salmon come home, there's this buzz in our community, and it's felt amongst the people. It's felt amongst the people that this is how it always should be, and there's much talk and much memory of the ancestors. There's much talk about gratitude and giving thanks. There's a whole heck of a lot of sharing going on amongst families that make up our tribal community. And then there's much celebration and expressions of spirit through song and dance. So I wish we could always live like that, and the spirit of gratitude. And so when I witnessed that when there was a record sockeye return in 2010, knowing that it's a 4-year cycle, I knew I had to come back and prepare myself to receive the coming home in 2014, which I did. And it was there again. And I must say that these 4-year cycles, like the other salmon that come before and after this particular salmon run, are pretty much non-existent. This year we didn't fish sockeye. Last year we had 1 day, and the year before was very minimal, two or 3 days. And then this cycle here, though, folks are getting to fish like for weeks, and the preparation for that goes on for months, and the memories and the stories live on past the season, well into the winter. So it's something that's very palpable in my life, but also in the lives of almost all the Lummi tribal members, both fishers and non-fishers, because we all carry a different responsibility in our community that's inherited from our grandparents and our ancestors. So my job is to tell these stories. So after 2014, I decided to start recording voices, and particularly, I know Susan knows him quite well, Larry Kinley, who had fished his entire life, and I started interviewing him in his 70s, and got about 10 hours of interviews from him on the understanding of what it is to be the salmon people, what it is to be born into salmon, what it is to pick up the responsibilities of his grandparents to ensure that the environment and salmon are protected, and also the depth of Larry's contributions to not only salmon, but to tribal government, to other tribal governments at the local and national levels. And then we got to film him and other fishers in 2018. And then my dear friend Larry had passed on. So we had to put our work aside for a while until the grieving period had passed. And then we picked it up again. And then when we picked it up again, we noticed what was happening along the Pacific coast. the Yurok tribe has gotten Warren Buffett to remove 4 dams from the Klamath River. And of course, Alawa took a dam down, and then on the Snake River, the Nez Perce announcing to the world that they are the Salmon people, and we want dams removed. And then when I started to look around up on the Fraser River, the Shuswap people that live at the headwaters of the Fraser River, but also they live right on this ridge where the headwaters of the Fraser are on one side of the ridge, and on the other side is the headwaters of the Columbia. And they take that responsibility very, very seriously, and what they are to do to prepare salmon to come home and give life, and then pass on and actually give life again when they die and go back into the water and go back into the earth. And they have all those stories that they share about the responsibilities we have towards the life cycle of the salmon. So so the one film that we want to do about Lummi and the salmon return and identification of the salmon people kind of grew into this bigger thing when we decided, well, let's pull all of this together and create a bigger voice. And so we did, and that's how the Salmon People Project was born. So this trailer we have is one part of 5 parts to the Salmon People Project that we can talk about. But I'd like to share the trailer now because in it is the voices from these tribes that I've mentioned, who've all want to join an alliance for this work to ensure that salmon and rivers and the environment are all made one again. And from this, there'll be a full-length movie that's been, we got funding from Visual Making Media, and under that agreement, we're to license the film to PBS to be shown for a year. So when we get done, which is probably next November, then it'll go public in that manner. So if we can show it now, Deb, that'd be great.
Really, it's about water. Our people tell us that we are actually born into water. We were water beings before we became human beings. Most of the indigenous people live along the oceans or rivers. They depend on water, they depend on the fish, for survival.
There was always fish here. It provided everything you needed to survive. It's where we drew our culture from. We almost grew around the salmon. And in that regard, we grew to respect something that provided so much for us.
Our relationship to the salmon started with the creation story. Before we were here, the animals met and decided that they needed to help us. And that's when salmon stepped forward and said, I will give myself. And that is when the ancient covenant started. And now our brother is suffering.
Water is considered the lifeblood of all living things. And the salmon needed to live, we needed to live. When we talk about forests or we talk about mining, we talk about the dam systems, and everything that happens to the water impacts everything within that system.
We're seeing a decline in this fishing, and what do? You gotta do something, you gotta make a choice, because if you do nothing, it ends.
There's a good picture of our cat.
The salmon has such an interrelated connection in the ecosystem. They not only feed humans, they feed the four-legged, they feed the actual nutrients in the rivers, they feed the winged ones, the eagles. If it's taken out of the equation, it'll have a ripple effect on the whole system. That's what we have to start thinking about, because that cycle gets interrupted, we have to do something about it.
Who are we without salmon? When we have big salmon runs and everybody has fish, Everybody's happy when our smokehouse is full. But when we lose our water, when our salmon are declining, our people are unhealthy.
As long as we want to be Indian people and we want to honor our custom and traditions and our shilling, and it'll be a running battle all the time. As long as we want to be who we want to be, because we have a different view of the world. That's the challenge. We're trying to preserve a way of life, and fishing is vital to that.
So it's a part of our way of life. And without the salmon, we're missing a piece of who we are. We're not able to exercise what was guaranteed in our treaty of 1855, which was a way of life. And we bargained for that.
The treaty talks about the rights that our forefathers made sure were ensconced in the wording. But not only do we have the rights, but we have the responsibility so we can teach others about the old way that our people teach us about how everything is tied together.
The United States is a democratic form of government whose ideal is individual freedom, but primarily benefits capitalism and promotes selfishness and greed. But our tribal systems of government existed for thousands of years and is interwoven and connected to salmon and all living things.
What do we want? Justice! What do we want?
It's important to remember that in those treaties, our ancestors reserved our own rights. And those rights remain the supreme law of the land today.
You want to follow us? Here I go.
I believe that is the future of how we pull ourselves out of this climate crisis. I really hear a call to gather, to form an alliance of the salmon nations, to use our sovereignty as a collective force to rebuild our nations. So that's what we will do.
Oh, do I still got the do I still got the floor? Okay. Well, any comments, I suppose, if we want to start there, and then I could pick it up from what people want to know. Is that a good way to move forward?
If that's what you're comfortable with. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
That was wonderful, Darrell. Really wonderful. I can't wait to see the whole thing. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. And I'd love to be able to show that trailer to other groups that I belong to. So it'd be nice to know if that's a possibility.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah.
Do you want me to put the link in the chat, Darrell?
Sure, that'd be good.
Okay.
That'd be great. I'm on a board called the Earth Stewards at the Center for Spiritual Living, and I'd love for everybody in our group to see that.
Ray?
Yeah, I had a question. Hi, Darrell. It's so good to see you. What is going on with the dams on the Snake? Is there any progress in getting rid of them?
Well, the governor and Senator Murray decided to do a study. That's kind of where we're at.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That kind of put the dialogue at that level to a halt in terms of, well, we're just going to make sure we have the study to move forward. But there are so many organizations that are activated to try to apply the pressure, you know, and a number of them are located right on the Columbia River. So I'll have to find out what their next activity is to try to make sure that that doesn't kind of filter out of people's minds, you know, and hearts.
Yeah. You know, study often makes for a real long quiet period.
Yeah, yeah.
Eliana, would you like to share your question?
Hi, thank you so much. It's such I'm so grateful to be here this evening with you. Thank you very much. And I was wondering if this is available for viewing right now. I'm working with a church group who's planning to perhaps do an Earth Summit kind of meeting in the spring, and I wanted to know if this film is available to be viewed and more about it.
Sure, I think Deb was going to share the link, and it's posted in the chat, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I see that there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
But right now, Darrell, it's just the trailer that's available, right?
Right, right. So I guess we can go back into where we're at with the film and where we're at with the project, and then maybe see if there are more questions that that people want to ask. Before I forget, though, on January 22nd, we'll have our Treaty Day Film Festival down at the Pickford. So we're working with Susie and the gang down there to get that together. For sure, one day, maybe 2 days. Coming out of COVID, it's always interesting how things kind of stop and go, you know, and respecting everybody's safety is number one. So we'll do the best we can. And then we've been gathering the Salmon People tribes. There's 6 of them. We've gathered twice now, once via Zoom, and this past on Indigenous Day, part of the Salmon People Project tribes were in person, but most of them are on Zoom, and we did that on Indigenous Peoples Day. Well, we're thinking our 3rd gathering is going to be on Earth Day, and we think Earth Day should be Mother Earth Day, and I think some people do recognize it as Mother Earth Day. But we want to hook up with those people and bring forward our ideas on what that day and like every day should look like in terms of taking care of Mother Earth. But the project itself caused us to do many things at Children of the Setting Sun. And at Children of the Setting Sun, our original mission was to create, share, and educate so that we can change perspectives of one another. And that was the original mission. Today, as a result of our conversations and our work and our relationships with these tribes, other organizations in the United States, and mostly all of you, my friends, we've made a shift in our mission. And today our mission is that Mother Earth is suffering from greed and ignorance, and that through our storytelling, we hope to share Indigenous values of gratitude and generosity and respect and responsibility, so that our children and our future generations will inherit a place that's much better than what we have today. So that's our new mission. And I encourage the people that work here to not memorize the lines, but memorize the intentions and embrace the intentions of what we're trying to say, the problem, and then what we see as our solutions in terms of storytelling and values, and then who it's for. It's for future generations. So we are taking that and integrating that into everything that we do, and most notably the Salmon People Project, which is the Larry Kinley film, this trailer that's going to become a film. But then working with the other tribes, we're developing a campaign to do like a 6-part series where we'll gather all the folks up and down the Pacific Coast to create unity for their work, so that as they go about either trying to remove dams and bring back salmon or restore rivers and habitat, that they have a lot of people standing with them, all of us, that could be very knowledgeable of who they are and where they come from, what they're doing, and give them that feeling of support in the work that they're doing. So that's coming out of this one film. And we also, in our conversations with these folks, and mostly Lummi and Nooksack and Swinomish and Tulalip, the interviews caused us to think even more deeply about what we're trying to do. And in that, we thought that the questions that we asked during these film sessions could be made into a research project. So we went to the Western Washington University and got an IRB approved, or a researcher approved by the IRB, as well as Northwest Indian College. So now at Children of the Setting Sun, we have 3 youth that are leading the research. They're asking the questions, they're documenting it, they're recording it, and we'll work with the people at Western and Northwest to do what doctors do when they analyze research. So, and then what we do with that could very well be a book, or it could very well be research papers that can contribute to curriculum development, perhaps, or any kind of policy that needs that kind of input. So along with science, we have this what we call meeting of the spirit. So then also I mentioned we're going to have a 3rd gathering. We're committed to ensure that we gather as a people to strengthen one another through song and ceremony, through sharing our work, and through bringing the young people into the room so that they can witness what's taking place and carrying on those responsibilities. And then all of this is going to be rolled into what we have at Children of Setting Sun, which is Setting Sun Institute, which is we're starting to formalize that so that all of this documentation goes to a place where it could be housed, could be shared, it could be interpreted, it could be formulated in the structures needed for places like academia or policy, or community discussions and the like. So we think it's something that we're committed to long term, rather than try to do a movie and then go on to the next one. We want to make this our contribution to what we feel is the the most important work of our generation, which is we better get our act together, because Mother Earth is really talking to us. And if we can contribute to the bigger conversation and the bigger movement, which is kind of like science-based, that we also have this matters of spirit that need to come to the movement also, and we can represent that as best we can. So at the end of the day, it's how do we connect as a people? What kind of relationships are we going to have, and how do we create hope? Well, hope is really just leadership. We want to be part of that, and as the best we can. If it's contributing our films, or contributing the information we gather from research, that's great. But we also have some pretty good young people that have good voices, and we'd like to encourage them to step up too. So that's our Salmon People Project. It's in its first year of its existence. For the first 5 years, we were helping in a lot of different areas, especially during COVID. But we also have a youth development department where they do podcasts, and we also have our storytelling division where we've been doing documentaries such as the land acknowledgement video, and we have work on an opioid video that's coming up, and we're being asked to do a lot of different things. Hatred's a big deal in our area that most people don't know about, that we're trying to tell the story of where that comes from and how do we get the people that don't know about it to know, so that young people don't have to learn that behavior, you know, both as the perpetrator, but also as the victim, you know. So that's our work. I'd really like to maybe take questions at this time if people have things they want to ask, or maybe share some insights or give me some direction, you know. I'm always open to, you know, things that we're doing that can be grown or deepened or, you know, shared. So I'm always looking for that.
I'd like to kind of raise up my hands to Santana. She's one of your youth there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the Snake River Dam vigil and presentation on Saturday night, and she got called up to speak, and she was pretty impressive.
Isn't she though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was pretty impressive, and it's great to see the youth get involved. And I know we've got some work on our end to do with getting some more of the youth involved, but it was really good to listen to her.
This part where we include the youth, it's something I guess we all kind of ask ourselves every now and then, like, who am I? You know, this question of identity. So it really just kind of kicks those ideas and those feelings into gear when they can be around folks that just have a strong relationship with salmon and the environment. They get a strong feeling of connection from being around those people that have their boots in the water.
I was wondering, Darrell, I know you mentioned you're having those 3 different meetings. Are those the meetings where you're asking elders, who are we as salmon people and who are we without salmon? Because I was so struck by those 2 questions when you brought those up at one time, and wonder how that's all fitting into your salmon project also. Yeah,
those 2 questions are the foundation for research. And they've been asking, you know, all the tribal folks from the 6 tribes, those questions. They have other questions leading in and out of those questions, but that's the very foundation.
Good job on the bathroom. Beautiful job on the bathroom.
And Darrell, are you anticipating another big salmon run in 2022?
Well, that's what
4 years, right?
That's what they're hoping for. I've been asking that lead-in question to a number of the fishers, you know, and it's quite interesting. When you're a fisher, you're just right in the moment, you know, you're just right there, right now, right here, very present with what the wind is doing, what the tide's doing, where the salmon are, and what the temperatures are, and all of that. But if I can get them at the right time, they'll pause and think about that. And like some of the older ones says, yeah, 1 more run so I can retire, you know, but I don't think fishermen ever retire, you know, but their hopes are there though.
Well, thank you, Darrell, for another inspiring project. Just wanted to clarify, what is the film isn't available yet, is it?
No, it's not. We're in post-production on the, I call it the Larry Kinley film. We've got all this footage for the last 4 years, and we have an editor that's, she's just kind of locked herself in a room now. She's putting the stories together, and we're going to get together and do a first cut here in December, and then from there it's just a lot of refining, you know.
So how can we help supporting this project?
Well, I think if we can learn how to share better, I think if we can practice any form of gratitude, I think is really that kind of energy is needed. During this last flood, you really worry about the homeless people because they live along Whatcom Creek, and Whatcom Creek flooded, and God, what can we do to help? It's that kind of energy we need. We're gonna, have these wake-up calls, I think, from here on out until we get the environment turned around. So that's what I think. If we feel we can feed off each other in the work that we do.
So sharing and it's pretty exciting to see how much awareness is growing and being shared about Indigenous knowledge and TEK. I don't know if people are aware of this, but PBS has 2 stations. One is the standard Channel 9 station, but they also have, if you have cable, Channel 338, their world station, which has been carrying some tremendous programs in support of an acknowledgement of Native American Heritage Month. And I encourage people to look into that and share what you learn, because 5 years ago there were in the general white population, there was very little discussion and knowledge about you folks, across the board, and the history of the United States. And it's gratifying to see that is changing, because we have a lot to learn from you. If we're to survive, we need to do some deep learning and apply those lessons.
Well, as soon as I find out, I'll let maybe I'll let Deb know, since I got her email. But I got word that the refugees from Afghanistan are going to be coming to Whatcom County. So I told the folks that when they do, be sure to get a hold of me, because our people have been doing immigration since 1492, and I think it'd be a good idea for us to welcome them too. So those kinds of things, we need to continue to practice.
Yeah, I can get you in touch with Ann Stevenson and some of the other people from Buff who are working on that project. And to also kind of give you a heads up and save the date, there is going to be a totem pole journey conducted in May going to the Snake River. So there's a tentative schedule set up right now. We're hoping to do an event here. I think it's on May 3rd. So when we do come out with that information, I'm going to be expecting many of you to show yourselves and show your support for both for the totem pole and for removing the Snake River dams.
As part of that journey, they're going to be stopping at a place called Celilo Village, an ancient village along the Columbia River that was next to the Celilo Falls, which was lost when they built a dam there. Well, in the development of these gatherings, the first one we hosted on Zoom the Columbia River tribes that were part of that gathering, as well as the Snake River tribes that were part of that gathering, including Colville. They all spoke about Celilo Village as a sacred place, and they all remember it and all have this vision of it returning someday. So our second gathering, we intended to have it at Celilo Falls so we can bring the world to this understanding. And unfortunately, COVID surged again, so we weren't able to go there. But it's quite remarkable what is in place there. You know, when Jay spoke about a form of government in the trailer, what he's talking about is the series, the village sites were all connected, and there was a form of government that lived within these villages, and how they were to share salmon, how they were to recognize each other with song and name, place names and the like, and how those names and songs and fishing places were exchanged mostly through marriage. How that was a form of government, and the intention was to share and to make peace amongst the people. Well, we learned about that with Celilo Falls, and that was the one that was most often spoken about. But learning from the chief at Celilo, which is quite remarkable to meet this man who he pretty much lives the old way. Yeah, you know, he's not attached to this, you know, he's not attached to much of anything other than fishing and providing, you know. But he heard about the Colville, you know, and the Colville haven't had salmon since the Cooley Dam went up. And he heard about the elders being fish hungry. So what he does every year when fishing along the Celilo, not the Columbia River next to the Celilo Falls, said he takes a truckload of salmon up to Colville and gives it to the elders. That's what he does, you know. It's not for money or anything. It's just because he knows that they're fish hungry, you know. And but he speaks to there's like 45 villages along the Columbia River, and how they work together and how they speak to one another. This all exists under this old form of government, and it's not regulated or litigated under U.S. Constitution and the like. You know, it's just still in place there. You know. And there's remnants of that here at Lummi, but not to that extent. But that's kind of like an end goal, is to recognize a different form of government that has different values that we can all live by, you know. So we won't find it in the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah. Darrell, I wanted to first of all just honor you for pulling together the elders and the young people, kind of a full circle in the way you have encouraged younger people from Lummi Youth Academy and coaching, and now the wonderful people on your team that are young people who are the new leaders, and you give them the opportunities. And you said that you also want to encourage young voices, and in a time when some of us are down about what's going on and the flooding from the past week and the suffering and that sort of thing, what are you hearing? What are you hearing from the young voices that about their concerns, or how they're facing up to the pretty serious issues having to do with Mother Earth? I mean, what are the things that you're hearing that give you some sustenance?
Well, from within our circle here, our circle of youth here at Children of the Setting Sun, it's quite encouraging because they're quite ambitious. And they're not telling me to sit down, but they're saying, I'll go do that. And I will speak at the gathering at Saturday, and I'll take a crew down to Tulalip and interview some elders. And they're actually going down to Nisqually to interview Nancy Shippentower, who's the niece to Billy Frank, who was a little girl when Billy Frank and all of those those elders from that time got arrested, got beat up and arrested. She witnessed all of that, you know, and so they're going down to talk to her even more about that experience, and then what are we to do, you know? So that's from our own circle. They're quite ambitious for the work to feel that the strength of our fishers so that they could build on their own life, which is mostly in academia right now, you know, but it creates more meaning to what they're learning from the classroom, you know. So there's that part, you know. And then I've been actually trying to reach out to other youth movements. You know, if you know anybody that I can connect with so we can join forces, I'd sure like to do that, you know. I think that's really important that all of these worlds, academia, you know, foundations, activist organizations, we got to connect. You know, it's we all have good things, good work, but we got to share it, you know, somehow.
Darrell, do you know Lisa Citron and the work she was doing in the public schools?
What's her name?
Lisa Citron, Citron. She went into the 5th grades, the 3 or 4 different classes, and taught a class and interviewed all the children. And if you've walked around downtown these days, you can see a lot of the writings that the kids came up with about climate change. It's all about climate change. I'd like to connect you up with her if you don't already know her.
Well, I'd love to talk to her, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have an email for you, but I don't know if it's current, so I need a new one, new way to connect you with her.
Yeah, Deb's got the emails. I think if she could post that, that'd be
great. Okay.
The there's a couple of good relationships that we built over the last couple of years, and one of them is with the Ferndale School District, in that they hired us to help with their bond, and they also hired us to do a video on their levy, and then from that we did a treaty day video, and then most recently we did a land acknowledgement video, all being shared within the Ferndale School District. But I think we think that, well, wow, that was good work and it was well received, but in some ways it really isn't, because it exposes also this climate we're living in. You know, I call it the Trump climate, but that tendency to, you know, not want to recognize us or actually want to hate us, you know. So we have to walk towards that and kind of figure that out, and we're being asked to do another video about that. And the birth of that hatred in the modern era was the Bolt decision, where a whole slug of our kids left the Ferndale School District and went to Shmita Indian boarding school. You know, and my mother's role in all of that was, it was right at the time when they were going to close the Shmita Indian boarding school in Salem, Oregon, but she seen the need from the amount of kids that were dropping out of Ferndale because of the amount of hatred going on there, that she felt the Shmita should stay open. So she went and fought for it, and it stayed open, and it's still open today, and people still go there from different tribes. You know, my mom went to school there, and my dad went to school there back in the 30s and 40s, you know, but they didn't have a choice. Now it's more tribally run, and it's a better place now than what it was during my parents' and grandparents' time. So, but you know, back to that next video, the beginning with the Bolt decision, we know it predates that, but we think there's work there that we can really kind of shape the conversation with those people that really don't know, you know, and bring them along to how they can better understand people of color, really, you know. So. Without doing any harm to the children, you know, that's the big risk, you know. And I got to do all of this before I retire. I won't retire, don't worry.
That's going to be a long time from now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. We've got good people here.
Any other questions or comments? Come on, you got to have some.
Dams kill rivers. There is progress being made on the snake, as you know, Deb. And it may be too late, but there is a growing awareness and effort that is seeing some movement by our elected officials, including the governor and Senator Murray, who made a statement recognizing the dams need to be breached, but they haven't shared their plan. Mark Simpson, a representative from Idaho, unveiled his plan I think last year, and created quite a stir with it and a lot of conversation. And he's a Republican. But if you go to Save Our Wild Salmon, there are ways to, you can engage and encourage people like the governor and senator to act before it's too late. And there's also an effort to get the president to intervene on this travesty, really, because those dams are not necessary and they're so destructive. I put the link in the chat, by the way, for Save Our Wild Salmon.
Yeah, so thank you.
I went to a salmon summit down in Olympia earlier this year. The tribes were there and they were talking about the Snake River dam removal. Chairman at the time, Shannon Wheeler, was there, chaired the meeting. But Representative Simpson was there, and he spent the whole 2 days there with the different tribes. And I wasn't on the agenda, but I got the Yakima tribe to allow for the video to be shown. So it was well received, and Representative Simpson was there, and he loved it. And so we had a conversation. I shared with him, I think Shirley and a few, Susan know who Father Patu is. I shared with him the Beginnings book. He took it and he read it that night. And the next day he pulled me aside and said, I want to come to Lummi. I want to come and spend some time with the Lummi people, and I would learn more about salmon and salmon people. So this last gathering we had at Lummi, you know, he had intentions of being there. He had intentions of being on the Zoom meeting to give us a talk, but that was that whole time, and they were beginning to debate these spending bills, and he couldn't get away. But his intention is to come out and visit us, so I'll let everybody know, and we can have a warm welcome for him, because I think it takes a lot of courage to be doing that from the party that he represents and the district that he represents to stand with us rather than where he's supposed to stand, you know. So, yeah, it's good. It's funny how things get done when you just kind of hang around, you know. You go there with the idea that, you know, we want to make a difference, and you just kind of figure it out.
So do you know anything about the 2,500 salmon that died a couple weeks back?
On the Nooksack.
Yeah.
Yeah, good friends of mine, Steve Solomon and Troy, they were all there, you know, water temperature, you know, and salmon like 58 degrees, you know, 58 degrees, and like on the Fraser, it gets up to 71, you know, which is not good, you know. It's we need more trees along the river. We need more snow in the mountains. You know, these things that give life, you know. We need more life-giving forces, which we are, you know. We just got to do the work. Yeah.
I like that idea of people being life-giving forces. It's a good slogan.
It's kind of funny how we kind of separate ourselves with the things that actually do give us life, you know. It's supposed to be reciprocal, right? We have a relationship, whether we like it or not, you know.
You've also got that responsibility.
Yeah, yeah. Well, these things that we do, we're kind of growing out of our space here. With the good community member John Bluffin allowed me to move here when I had no place to go, and now we have 6 youth, and we have 11 other people, and getting kind of crowded over here in Ellis. We're looking for a place, a lot of empty spaces in Bellingham, and I must share with you, I had my original intentions to move out to the to Tietzen Center there at tribal property there on Slater Road, but it got wrapped up in politics, so I never was able to get in there. But someday I'd like to be located there, you know, kind of close to home, but close to the people that are movers and shakers like you folks, you know. We need each other. Yeah. Be sure to let folks know, and I'd love to go talking to people about what we're doing, figure out how we can stay connected, you know. Was up at Fairhaven a couple of times the last month, and that's been really good. And it's kind of interesting. I've had one tribal guy and 2 non-tribal guys, but they both came, all 3 of them come from Fairhaven College. For some reason, I have this pipeline going there, you know. I think it's the interdisciplinary thinking, I think, is probably what it is, you know. So it helps, you know. Helps a lot. And we'll be joining the Bellingham Art Walk real soon. We're going to make some prints of the work we did on the Salmon People Project, and find a place within the walk to get our work out there. So I'll be letting Deb know about that so she can get the word out.
Okay.
That's always been fun. We've done the co-op a couple of times, and it's good to get some feedback on our work, you know. Have good feelings about it.
What about opportunities? Oh, Eliana has a couple of questions that she wanted to ask.
Okay.
Hi, yeah, I'm from Seattle, and I'm very pleased that Kathy Delbeck asked me to come to this meeting, and I've gotten to know Kathy a little bit through our work together on the Care for Creation Network, which is out of St. James Cathedral in Seattle. And as I'm listening to all this, my head is really whirling. But the thing that I'll settle down on is this. I think that this information and what you have in the film is really essential for people to understand. I think people are hungry for it. Currently, this group that's kind of started about a year ago has been very much interested in trying to do things for Laudato Si, which you probably, well, you know, Laudato Si is the encyclical about saving the earth that was written by Pope Francis. And we're thinking about doing sort of an Earth Summit sometime in March of this year, and are trying to find a way to bring Catholic Christian people together to be supportive of things that are happening to save the planet, and very much interested in the cultural aspects of indigenous peoples and fishing, for example. And it would be my dream, and it just feels right that somehow, Mr. Hillaire, that you could somehow be a part of this, or somebody to come and talk to people at this gathering. We don't exactly know when the gathering is going to be yet, but I think that it's really essential information. And I sort of went to this meeting this afternoon and happened in this meeting. And so I'm trying to make a connection, but it's also fresh and I'm just feeling my way through, swimming through the water here. So I would very seriously like to pursue that, because I really, something happened to me some years ago where I really saw that we need all of us to really come together and from whatever, you know, basis we come as people and worshiping God in whatever way we do, and to be learning and honoring the wisdom of indigenous people, so we could, as one humanity, get together to reclaim human relations with one another and with the earth. And we need to somehow come back together with that. And I feel a very strong conviction personally to try to help make that happen, which is why I would be so happy if somebody from this organization could come and be part of the summit. And I'm speaking from myself, my own inspiration. But anyway, so that's what I have on my mind right now. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I welcome the invitation, you know, and you know, make room for the young people, because no doubt I'll bring them along, you know.
That's essential.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ken?
Yeah, I'm Ken, and I'm from Ferndale. And probably about a month ago, we had my wife and I had the opportunity to watch that film that you people made about the kind of the history of Ferndale and the land acknowledgement. And I just want to say thank you for producing that film, because we need to know where we live, and we need to know the history. And sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, we don't know, you know, through our education system, we don't know what things that we should know, things that we should learn. And I just wanted to say thanks for producing. And just one little side note, you talk about Father Pat Tui, and my wife's mom and dad used to attend the little mission church down in Tulela when he was the pastor down there. And Cheryl's dad was an ex-Seattle policeman, and he was a sheriff down there, but he wasn't a Catholic. And Cheryl and I used to attend mass, and he started going down there, and he became real attached to that church. And he would get up, and you know, he would get up with all the rest of us and go up to communion, and there was something that that drew him to that church. And he made a real connection with the Tulela people too, which I thought was kind of unusual for him, being with his background, but it was really cool. And when he died, Father Pat celebrated his funeral mass up there in that little church, and the place was packed. So it was nice, really nice. That's all we got to say.
I'll mention that to Pat. I talk to him quite often, and I just have to share with the folks here that, you know, Pat has a way of converting people, but he lets you know right away that he's been converted too, you know, and get a big kick out of that. Father Pat's spiritual guide up at Tulalip is a fellow by the name of Dale Jones, and Dale was a hellraiser as a young man and spent a lot of years in the Mexico State Penitentiary. But today Dale is all about forgiveness and all about taking care of children and making sure kids have shoes to wear, you know. And his most famous saying is, "We just all need to get along," you know. So he's kind of like Father Pat's right-hand man, and I'll mention it to both of them. For sharing with me, and I'm sure they know who your father was.
His name is Bob Dodge.
Bob Dodge, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, he was one of the most kind people I've ever met. You know, just his demeanor.
Yeah.
You know, kind of unusual, even in the Catholic Church, but you know, he understood what it was all about.
Yeah, it's true.
So we're coming up on the end of our time here. So if anybody wants to get something else in real quick, other than that, we will extend. Oh, Sue?
Is anybody that's on this call involved with the planning of the Sacred Earth Fair for next spring? I know it's an MNCJ thing, and some of the people from CSL are involved in it. I just thought I'll ask you about that too, Darrell, when we know more about it. See if you'd like to be part of that.
Sure. Okay. Looks like Carol had a question. Comment.
Hi, I did. I was reading recently about, you know, all of the flooding, and I just wanted to inquire how everyone is doing on Lummi.
Well, the river has receded, so people are getting around again. Probably the biggest fear was getting our doctors to and from the clinic, you know, because of COVID and because of whatever those symptoms might be around COVID or the flu and the like. It was our biggest challenges. And my son just got elected to the council like, you know, a few days ago, you know, and so that was his job, is to get boats and doctors down to the harbor so they can get doctors out there to the clinic, and they were able to do that. So things turned out quite well, and you know, everybody's okay.
Is that Tony?
Yeah, my son Tony. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, good for him. Yeah, he'll do a good job.
I'm not surprised. I worked with Tony at the Whatcom Community Foundation. And he was fantastic. So,
yeah. Pretty
well,
proud.
I hope everyone is safe and doing okay.
I wish folks could get to know my daughter too, you know. You know, my son's the public speaker, so like when you speak, that people kind of take notice and they want you to, get up there and be the leader and all that. But I have to tell you, my daughter knows all the protocols. She knows how to take care of the people. She knows how to follow our ceremonial steps and the like, and who to ask for all these things that make sure our traditions are carried on. And it's quite valuable when you think about it, the mother and the grandmothers and all of that is not known well enough in our society, that the female really is what keeps us together. I'm quite proud of my daughter that she's picked up the work of my mom or her grandmother, but also all of her aunts. She just kind of knows what to do and doesn't expect anything. But that's really how we put ourselves back together, is that balance.
Darrell, what's her name, please?
Tawny.
Tawny?
Yeah. And she won't come and speak, but she'll come and do. Those kind of people.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think Susan knows who she is, her daughter. Yeah.
I'm picturing both of them when they were little kids with you in the office visiting Wayne.
Yeah, I know.
A long time ago.
Now there they are, carrying on. I really like to thank all of you for spending some time with me, and I wish the rest of the team was here so they could share their insights and what we're learning, and we're always learning. We're always trying to receive, as much as we can, but at the same time, give back as best that we can, especially those folks that are, a tougher place than us, and encourage wellness amongst all of us so that we kind of learn more compassion. We really need to learn more compassion in this time. The counter narrative is out there, we're very aware of it. We're not going to participate in any kind of forms of hatred or, greed, if you will. We just want to build this community. So any way we can do that, I think we should take advantage of those times. We're in that moment, we're going to need each other more and more, and it's kind of like it's the biggest fight we're ever going to face right now. So let's stick together, huh?
Amen.
Well said.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Darrell.
Yeah.
Very much appreciated. I don't have a closing reading, but I thought what I would do is play a video of Dana Lyons and the song he wrote, Salmon Come Home, as our closing piece. So if you give me just a minute, I'll bring that on. Okay, there it is.
Home again and again since.
Oops.
Remember? It came from when we were down at the harbor. We said goodbye to the totem.
Mm-hmm.
Salmon come home again and again since the beginning of time, the beginning of when we've been living here. We've been living here forever. The salmon come home again and again since the beginning of time, the beginning of when we've been living here. We've been living on this land forever. Then the Russians came for the furrin ground. They built log forts and we burned them down. Then the great flu came, taking old and young. We gathered who was left and we begin again. The salmon come home home again and again since the beginning of time, the beginning of when we've been living here. We've been living here forever. The salmon come home again and again since the beginning of time, the beginning of when we've been living here. We've been living on this land forever. Then the oil rigs came, promising us jobs, leaving oil sheens as we carry on. Then the loggers came, taking the great trees, leaving mountains bare, leaving muddy streets. The salmon come home again and again since the beginning of time, the beginning of when we've been living here. We've been living here forever. The salmon come home again and again since the beginning of time, the beginning of when we've been living here. We've been living on this land forever. Now they come for the gold underneath our river, to destroy our home, take our children's future. We are one small town, we are one proud people, we are one with salmon, we are one with eagles, we are one small town, we are one proud people, we are still surviving, we are still surviving. I do not believe Creator wants this to happen. I do not believe Creator wants this to happen. I do not believe Creator wants this to happen. I do not believe Creator wants this to happen. Salmon come home again and again since the beginning of time, the beginning of when we've been living here. We've been living here forever. The salmon come home again and again since the beginning of time, the beginning of when we've been living here. We've been living on this land forever. We've been living here. We've been living on this land forever. Salmon come home